We'll talk about bifurcation lesions today. Definition of bifurcation lesions.
Lokesh, can you zoom it a bit? Can you zoom it a bit?
Lokesh, your voice is very
muffled.
coming
Yeah,
low.
you can take out the thing. Mic. You speak into your laptop.
Now is it okay?
Yeah, better.
Hello?
No, now it's not.
It's again soft.
Again soft.
echoing that.
Don't use mic.
Then without mic, how can I use? How can I
Hey,
talk?
it's clear now. It's clear now. Arun, adjust your laptop. It's clear now.
Clear now? Okay.
Talk now. It's clear.
Yeah. Coming to definition of bifurcation lesion. A bifurcation lesion is a coronary artery narrowing occurring adjacent to or involving the origin of significant side branches. So basically, there are three possibilities whereby the lesion can occur. The combination of these three or all three is basically bifurcation lesion. A significant side branch is a branch whose loss is consequence to the particular patient. What is the consequence? It can cause symptoms, it can cause ischemia, and it affects the viability of the supplied myocardium. Most important, the branch which you don't want to lose. So the flow across a bifurcation lesion, this is the flow, which is usually laminar. Once bifurcation arrives, the carina is usually spared, but because of the oscillatory things, the lateral walls of the bifurcation get affected. So most commonly we see lesions on the bifurcations are on the lateral walls of the bifurcation, and carina is usually spared. That is the usual thought. But recently a lot of studies are done with IVUS and OCT, which has shown even carina is affected in 30% of the patients. But when carina is affected, the lateral walls are severely affected. There are multiple classifications which have been proposed to classify bifurcation lesions. I'm not going into details of all those. Sanborn, Safian, Duke, Lefferway, Medina, and Moorhead. The most important for us is Medina classification, which is basically the three possibilities in a bifurcation as the proximal main branch, the distal main branch, and the side branch. According to that, they have given divided into 1, 1, 1. So if there is a lesion both proximally, distally in the main branch and also in the side branch, then it is 1, 1, 1. If there is a lesion only in the main branch, that is proximally and distally, then it is 1, 1, 0. If the lesion is in the proximal branch and the side branch, then it is 1, 0, 1. Like that, it is done. And the lesion severity should be at least 50%. So any lesion more than 50% occurring in these three sides, it is classified by Medina classification. The things which are not included in Medina classification are vessel diameter. It doesn't give consideration to vessel diameter, plaque distribution and the length, and bifurcation angle. The problem in assessment of bifurcation is finding a working view for side branch ostium. Sometimes if we don't get a proper view, the bifurcation lesion might be completely missed. And second is dynamic changes which occur in the bifurcation as we go ahead with the bifurcation intervention. The bifurcation angle might change. Once we wire the lesion, the angle which was previously 90 can become 60. The plaque modification which we do because of balloon dilatation can also affect our strategy later. Plaque shift, all these things we'll see ahead. The ambiguity in assessment is logged by angiography. At least 50% of the times when we assess the mainly left main or bifurcation lesions, we'll overestimate the severity. And if we do IVUS or OCT in those patients, then we will get to know that those patients were actually insignificant disease. So So based on this Medina classification, the bifurcation lesion can be either true bifurcation. The main thing is in bifurcation is side branch should be involved along with the any one of the main vessel branch. So it should be main branch plus side branch, both should be involved. Main branch can be proximal or distal or both. So first is all three involved. Second is only proximal and the side branch involved. Third is the distal and side branch involved. The remaining are called false bifurcation lesions. Just because they come in the area of bifurcation, they are called bifurcation lesions. The MATS classification was given basically for techniques. I'll come to this later. Coming to bifurcation strategy, when we encounter a bifurcation lesion, the most preferred strategy is provisional side branch stenting with pot. And the other side is when the lesion is Medina 111 with the difficult side branch access or high risk of occlusion, then we can directly go ahead with two-stent strategy. On coming to this provisional side branch strategy, which involves only using one stent, if you have deployed one stent and at the end of the procedure, if the side branch is less than 75% stenosed, there is no dissection, normal flow, and there is no ischemia, then we can do just.
Lokesh, can you magnify?
Oh, it is not clear. The provisional stenting strategy involves only one stent. At the end of the provisional stenting strategy, if the side branch is only 75% stenosed, or there is no dissection or normal flow or normal ischemia, then we can leave the patient. But routinely, some centers do FFR for those patients. And if FFR is negative, then that is the end of the procedure. If FFR is positive, then we have to address the side branch also with the help of T-stenting or TAP or QLOT. I will come to all of these in detail later. So this is in general for bifurcation. When we are addressing a true bifurcation, and if there is a significant stenosis of the main and side branches, then you have to see whether the side branch is amenable for stenting or not. And if even side branch is severely stenosed, and the length of the lesion is more than 5 millimeters, and vessel diameter is considerable, that is more than 2.5 millimeters, then we have to go ahead with two-stent strategy. Otherwise, we can do provisional strategy and rest all conditions. This will be more clear by the end of the talk. For even LM bifurcation, everything is same. But here also, a best strategy preferred is provisional strategy. If there is a complex bifurcation lesion, complex true bifurcation lesion, then we can go straight away go ahead with two-stent strategy with the help of IVAS and OCT. The evidence base for doing a bifurcation strategy, there are multiple trials done since 2000. For non-LM lesions, there are multiple trials. Most of them are non-significant. They have not shown any superiority of doing two stents versus. This is basically done for two versus one stent. Hello. These trials are done basically to see whether which is better, two stents versus one stent. None of these were significant. So the best strategy till now is provisional side branch strategy. We will go ahead, the usual strategy, we will go ahead with one stent. And if the side branch gets compromised or the flow gets compromised, then only second stent has to be deployed. These are all studies for non-LMCA. The studies which are done for main studies which are done for LMC bifurcation are DK Crush 3, which involved comparison of DK Crush and QLOT. With QLOT, there was higher MACE at 1 year. So DK Crush was superior here. The DK Crush trial compared DK Crush and provisional stenting. Here, there was significant decrease in target lesion failure at 12 months. And there was trend towards decrease in target lesion revascularization and MI. Same thing they have shown in a tabulated form because 3-year outcomes have come out now. This show that provisional strength.
Lokesh,
Hello.
Lokesh, you want to
Yeah.
zoom out a little bit? We can't see what is on the right side of the screen actually.
Yeah,
And
I'm focusing on this image.
okay, you're focusing. Okay, fine.
This is target lesion failure with provisional stenting. As the time increases, the target lesion failure is increasing with provisional stenting as compared to DK crush. This is in DK crush 5 trial. And this is I showed all these trials which were done for two versus single stent. The meta-analysis of all those trials showed that single vessel strategy fared better than two vessel strategy always. So based on these trials, what guidelines say is the stent implantation in the main vessel only, followed by provisional balloon angioplasty with or without stenting of the side branch is recommended for PCA of the bifurcation lesions. That is class 1 recommendation based on the trials which you saw, Nordic, British bifurcation, that is BBS, DK crush 3 and the meta-analysis. In true bifurcation lesion of the left main, DK crush is preferred over provisional stenting. That is class of recommendation 2B based on DK crush 5. While doing a bifurcation stenting, there is only recommendation for IVUS, that is class 2A in ESC 2018 guidelines. There is no guideline based on OCT because there is not much data on OCT. It is coming up. It has not yet been published mostly. So use of IVUS and OCT is recommended in planning, executing and optimizing complex interventions, but it is not mandatory. So coming to what is provisional stenting.
Okay, so in LMC true bifurcation, the true bifurcation means Medina third letter being 1, no, the side branch has to be involved.
Yeah, if you call it true bifurcation, a side branch has to be involved.
Has to be involved, okay.
Along with main branch.
Along with main branch, the middle can be not there. So I just want to know, they're written 2B, no, that means if possible, better to go with conventional provisional stenting. If not,
yeah, provisional is always, first choice is always provisional.
Okay, including in
unless you are sure that unless you are sure that while doing provisional you will compromise side branch, then only you go with 2 stent strategy.
Okay.
So what is provisional strategy? This is visible. This is a bifurcation. It's a This is a bifurcation where 2 wires are put, one in the main vessel, one in the side branch. Then the stent is deployed into the main branch. This stent is sized according to the reference vessel of the distal main branch and not based on the proximal main branch. So because it is sized based on a distal main branch, there is a area of malapposition proximally. So to correct that, a pot is done. So the balloon is placed, the distal marker of the balloon is just at the carina. So a balloon is placed proximal to that and a pot is done. So that this part which was not opposed well gets opposed to the wall. But still some part of the stent is not yet opposed here. While doing so, we keep, because we also deployed the stent in the main branch, now this wire in the side branch has got jailed behind the stent. So that wire which is there in the side branch is through behind the stent and into the side branch. Now, now after doing a pot, the wire which was in the main branch is taken back. Now that is put into the side branch. And if it is successfully put into the side branch, the jailed wire which was there here, that is removed and that is now put into the main branch. So that is called wire exchange or wire crossing. After that is done, now you have both the wires through inside the stent after the exchange. So you take two balloons now. One, you can use either the same balloon with which you dip the stent delivery balloon also you can use for doing your FKI. So you take that balloon plus a balloon which is sized according to the side branch. You take both the balloons and do a simultaneous kissing inflation. By doing that, what you achieve is this thing as compared to the above image. In the above image, as I told here, it was not very well opposed. After doing a FKI, this part gets opened inside the side branch, and that provides a better scaffolding for the vessel.
Lokesh, what is the inflation nominal for both? Is it nominal pressure for inflation?
It is not nominal. It is a slightly complicated thing. The thing is, you first inflate the side branch balloon at up to 8 atmospheres. Then you start inflating the main branch vessel till 4 atmospheres. After 4 and 8, both balloons will be inflated. From there, you go to high pressure inflation simultaneously for both. And that simultaneous inflation at high pressure, that is around 14 to 20 atmospheres, is maintained for minimum 30 seconds. And if 30 seconds is too much, then you can do 3 inflations at 10 seconds each, by keeping the same sequence as I mentioned. That you inflate side branch balloon first at low pressure, then main branch balloon at low pressure, then simultaneously both balloons at high pressure and keep them inflated for at least 30 seconds. And then deflate them simultaneously.
Okay, so we are using NC, okay, na NC balloon here. Okay.
Yeah, NC.
Okay.
To optimize, to get the best results, the things which you have to do is pot, FKI, and NC balloon. 3 things you should have for optimized bifurcation. One is pot, the second thing is FKI, and third is
this
NC
pot, this pot balloon size is according to the stent of the main branch, no?
I'll tell everything about it.
Okay, fine.
To size that balloon also. I'm just coming to it so that you know. I'm going to come to each and every step of it now.
Okay, fine.
So in that I'll explain everything. So coming to provisional side branch strategy, which is the most preferred strategy. Here, how to select a guide catheter. Most of the bifurcation strategies can be done through 6 French guide, except where you need 2 simultaneous stents to be taken for delivery. If you need 2 simultaneous stents to be taken, then you have to have 7 French or 8 French. You can, through 6 French, you can have 1 balloon, 1 stent, or 2 balloons simultaneously over 2 wires. But you can't have 2 stents simultaneously through 6F. And 7F is used when you are directly using 2-stent strategy, or there is a doubt regarding the strategy, or you are going to decide regarding the final strategy based on your pre-dilatation of the lesion. So coming to the first step, that is wiring of the bifurcation. The upfront wiring of both the branches is recommended, the green box. Upfront side branch wiring is recommended in true bifurcation, or if difficult wiring is anticipated. Only main branch wiring may be used if side branch angle is favorable and no severe side branch disease is present. So if suppose the side branch is at 90-degree angle and there is not much side branch disease, then you might use one wire, because the lesion is at the side branch is at 98-degree angle, it is less likely to get compromised. So in that case, you might use a single wire. And the red thing is not recommended. Only main branch wire is not recommended if side branch is severely diseased or unfavorably angulated. If side branch has critical stenosis or it has a sharp angulation, you can't use a single wire, because while doing any manipulation here, by doing a balloon, you will shift the carina and compromise the side branch. So you have to have two wires as mentioned here. So while wiring, the most difficult branch is wired first. The second wire is then inserted with limited rotational maneuver to avoid entanglement. Because if we wire the difficult branch later, then because of the maneuver and rotation, the two wires might get entangled. So that's why they recommend wiring the difficult lesion first. And the tip of the main branch wire should be pre-shaped according to the main branch side branch angle to ease recrossing later. As I mentioned here, after doing a pot, we are crossing the main branch. We are taking the main branch wire into the side branch. So while doing that, we don't have to come out entirely and reshape the wire again and put it. While putting this wire inside only, we have to shape it like what is desired. So we just have to pull the wire up and again negotiate it towards the side branch. If we have pre-shaped it before inserting the main branch wire, then that is possible. That is what they say. So what is rationale of side branch wiring? That is also a jailed wire. So it serves as a marker for rewiring. So again here, because we are taking the main branch into the side branch, the main branch wire into the side branch, even if this gets compromised because of pot, we have a wire there already to guide us the passage of this wire, the main branch wire into the side branch again. So it acts as a guide. It reduces the bifurcation angle. Suppose the bifurcation angle is more than 90. It happens in L6 usually, the angle can be more than 90 also. So in that case, once you wire the lesion, the angle will automatically become favorable. But another disadvantage is your favorable angle, which is 90, can reduce also to some 60-70 degrees. So it is a two-way thing. It improves the side branch patency. So because you have a wire across, you can always go through over the wire and intervene even if the side branch gets compromised. How? Suppose if the side branch gets compromised, you can bail out that by advancing a 1.5 mm balloon over the jailed wire.
Reduce bifurcation angle means what? How it help?
This is the main branch wire, which is inside the stent after pot, and this is the jailed wire. Now suppose this gets cut off. So what you can do is you can bring a balloon over this wire up till here and inflate it across into the side branch and inflate it. By doing that, you will create similar thing again. So now you take this wire again back, cross it again to the other side, and through this you do your side branch dilatation and then pot. So by doing that, you are bailing out the side branch occlusion which happened here. So having a side branch is advantageous always. Also, it serves as an anchor for deep intubation of the guiding catheter if required. Suppose if your balloon or a stent is getting stuck somewhere proximally, then you can always use that jailed wire as an anchor. So where is the side branch wiring must? It is must anywhere where side branch is clinically important. As I mentioned, clinically important means wherever it can cause symptoms. It can jeopardize a large amount of myocardium or affect the viability of the distal supplied territory. And it should be always done for true bifurcation lesion. Now, what if you have a difficulty in wiring a side branch? You can use a hydrophilic wire. There are multiple methods. You can use hydrophilic wire, stiff wire, or there is a method called reverse pull wire. I'll come to it. Then you can do balloon assisted thing, which we do usually. Then micro catheter assisted wiring. Then venture catheter assisted wiring. Venture catheter is a tip deflectable catheter. Because you have a jailed wire as a marker, you can advance a venture catheter over the main branch wire and deflect its tip at the side branch where our marker is, and that will assist in passing the main branch wire into the side branch. If nothing of this is working, then we can do plaque modification in the main branch. That is, we can do pot, we can do rota, or if nothing is working, then we have to abort the procedure.
What is this reverse pull wire? What you said?
I'm coming to it. Difficulty in wiring a side branch. The way wire should be bent is shown here. Actually, it should be given a primary curve and secondary curve as the curves which we have in the coronary diagnostic or guide catheters. The same principle applies here. Through while hooking a coronary, we go into aorta and then hook the coronary. It is same principle applies to even hooking a side branch in a coronary artery. So here the main coronary artery acts as the aorta and the side branch acts as the coronary artery. The same thing. Here the coronary wire has been shaped like a JL. So that the secondary curve acts as a hinge point, and that leads to prolapse of the tip into the side branch. That makes the things very easy. Or you can shape it like a EBU or Goda. That will also cause the same thing to prolapse into the thing. This is the reverse pull thing. If just by doing giving the shape like a JL or EBU, if you are not able to hook it into the side branch, then what you can do is you advance that wire distally and then slowly pull it back. Because of its shape, at one point it will automatically hook the side branch. Once it hooks, you can slightly rotate and manipulate and enter into the side branch. As shown here. You can manipulate and it will enter into the side branch. Another method is if you have failed all the time till now, then over another wire you can take a balloon distally, just distal to the bifurcation, inflate it at low atmosphere, keep it there so that when you are trying to push to cross the lesion, your wire gets support. It doesn't go in continuously into the main branch. So it has only one way to go, that is into the side branch. So after you have wired both the lesions, now coming to pre-dilatation of the lesion. The main branch pre-dilatation for facilitation of optimal main branch stent expansion and deposition is to be done most of the times, except when you are anticipating a soft lesion or you are doing a intervention for ACS where thrombus is anticipated. You do side branch pre-dilatation if side branch flow is impaired or you feel the access will be difficult and you have struggled a lot to put the wire inside again at the beginning only, then you have to do or if the side branch is heavily calcified or has severe lesion, you have to do side branch pre-dilatation also. Otherwise, usually you don't do side branch pre-dilatation because that can cause dissection. If it causes dissection in the proximal side branch, then you have to convert from the single stent strategy to two stent strategy. You won't have any option. So as far as possible, the side branch pre-dilatation should be avoided. And it should be done only if there is severe or calcific lesion or you are anticipating difficult wire entry again. So for doing a pre-dilatation main branch, the balloon is sized according to the distal main vessel. So you have to size the pre-dilatation balloon according to the distal main vessel. Direct stenting can be an option if the soft lesion is anticipated, like in ACS. The side branching pre-dilatation has to be done only if flow is impaired after the wiring. Sometimes it can happen that as soon as you wire, the flow can get impaired because the lesion was severe and you have changed the angle of the vessel. In case of severe calcific lesion in the side branch, where if you do a balloon dilatation in the main branch, it is likely to cause compromise of the side branch. In that case, you have to wire the lesion, you have to balloon dilate the side branch as well. And in the third case, if you are anticipating a difficult access to the side branch again. Disadvantage. So coming to disadvantages of doing side branch dilatation, there is a risk of side branch dissection always, which might require a second stent for a side branch. And it also, if you are doing a side branch dilatation, even if it is not causing dissection, it can increase the risk of restenosis if the side branch is injured by pre-dilatation and not properly scaffolded by main branch stent. Coming to main branch stenting, DES is recommended approach for bifurcation PCI, sized according to the distal vessel reference diameter. So here they have brought one stent which is sized according to the distal reference vessel, causing malposition in the proximal segment. BMS is not recommended. Main branch stent should protrude at least 8 to 10 millimeters proximal to the carina to allow pot. From carina, the main branch stent should protrude at least 8 to 10 millimeter proximally, because our pot balloon size will be minimum will be 8 millimeters. To allow pot, we should have at least 8 to 10 millimeters proximal to the carina. Use stents with open cell design. No BMS should be used while planning a 2-stent strategy. Actually, while this protrusion behind the carina should be decided by what balloon sizes we have for post dilatation before only. If our cath lab has pot balloon available which is only from size 12 or 15, then we have to protrude it 12 to 15 behind. So you have to consider that before only. You can't put for 8 you can't leave only 8 mm and do pot with 10 mm or 12 mm balloon. You have to consider that also. So while doing bifurcation stenting, you have to know which stents are open cell design and to what extent they can be stretched. So these are the names of the stents which are open cell design, and according to their sizes, they are available in various sizes, from 2.5 to 5. And the largest balloons, largest stents are usually 4 to 5, which we are going to use in LMC bifurcation especially. If any of these stents, if you inflate with 6 mm non-compliant balloon at 14 atmospheres, these are the values given according to bench testing to which they can be expanded maximally. So if you take a 5 millimeter synergy stent, and if you inflate it with a 6 millimeter Maverick balloon at 14 atmosphere, the maximum dimension it can give you is 7.5 millimeters. The most of the dimensions are from 5.3 to 6 millimeters here. And the mean diameter of LMC is 5.
Lokesh,
Yeah.
out of this stents, which stents are used in the clinical trials? Any idea? I'm just asking, I don't know.
Zynes is used. Zynes is used.
But so that means expedition, no?
Yeah, expedition.
Generally, see, in left main, these are biometrics. Noble used only biometrics. All 90%, 97% was biolimers. I mean, limers.
With thick struts.
And Excel was only Zynes.
Excel was Zynes and Noble was biometrics. Correct.
So it's like that. Basically, it is depending on which trial, but these are all approved for left main version.
Okay. So all these are tested in the trials, you are telling?
Yeah.
Okay.
In that above chart, Promus Premier was not there. Even that can be used and that can be stretched. The 4 mm stent can be stretched to 5.75 mm with the same balloon, 6 mm balloon. So after doing main branch stenting, we have to optimize. We have put a stent into the main branch according to the size of the distal main vessel. Because of that, we have caused a malposition in the proximal segment. So to optimize that, we have to do few things. We have to do pot and FKI. So by doing a pot, by doing a pot, we are correcting this malposition which we had created by putting a stent in main branch. So by doing that, our stent gets opposed very well in the proximal segment. So what pot does is it corrects malposition. It facilitates side branch rewiring. It is creating an opening for wire to go into the side branch. So it is facilitating side branch rewiring. It is providing a scaffolding to the side branch because the stent will, part of your stent will protrude into the ostium of the side branch. And it will restore the circularity of the proximal main vessel because your pot balloon will be circular. So pot should be done routinely with short non-compliant balloon to correct for stent intersizing in the proximal branch. For FKI, 2 non-compliant balloons are recommended, sized according to the side branch and distal main branch with short proximal overlap. The main branch stent length should protrude proximally into the main vessel by at least 8 to 10 mm, as I mentioned, but should be decided based on what balloon sizes are available on your shelf. Like I mentioned, that can be till 15 millimeters. So COBIS 2 pot trial, by doing a pot, there was decrease in the mace, mainly driven by target vessel revascularization. So pot is essential.
This
Hello?
pot is done before rewiring and before kissing balloon technique, routinely or like?
Yeah. Pot is done immediately after doing a main branch stenting.
Okay.
I'll show again the steps. Final kissing inflation. Routine FKI in provisional stenting does not improve clinical outcomes. This was shown in Nordic Baltic study. However, FKI has to be done when side branch stenosis, if after doing a provisional stenting, if you have side branch stenosis of more than 75% or you have compromised the flow to the side branch. So FKI has to be done, which most of the time achieves the normal flow in the side branch. The advantage of FKI is it centralizes the carina. Alternate to FKI is to do pot side pot. I will tell what is pot side pot. Again, coming to the same steps. So we have there are 2 wires, one in main vessel, one in side branch. Then over the main branch vessel, we have brought in a stent which is sized according to the distal main vessel, causing a malposition in the proximal segment. To correct that malposition, we have done pot, and the distal marker of the balloon is at the carina while doing a pot. So by doing a pot, we are opposing this part to the vessel wall. But while doing all this, we are jailing a wire which is into the side branch. After this, we come to the crossing. At this step, the wire which was in the main branch, we take it back. This wire is supposed to be pre-shaped to allow passage into the side branch. So we'll withdraw the wire back and try to pass it into the side branch through the struts of the stent. Once we are successfully inside the stent, we will withdraw the side branch jailed wire and put it into the main branch. So we are exchanging the wire. So after the wire exchange is done, we will take 2 non-compliant balloons sized according to the distal main vessel and the side branch and do a kissing balloon inflation. So that kissing balloon inflation will cause this thing, which will scaffold the side branch ostium. And it will centralize the carina also. If the pot balloon is deeper into the distal side branch, once you inflate this balloon, the carina will get shifted to the side branch and this will get compromised. We don't want that to happen. So kissing balloon inflation is done, which keeps the carina in the center. Actually, by doing a kissing balloon, because you are using 2 balloons, the shape of the lumen which you get in the end will be won't be a circle. It will be a binocular like shape. So to correct that, actually they recommend repot in the end. So alternative for doing FKI, because FKI needs two balloons to be brought simultaneously. If that you don't want to do, and then you can do, what you can do is you can do pot side pot. In pot side pot, the first 4 steps are same as in provisional stenting. Only things change from are 7th. 5 and 6 are also same till wire exchange. Here, instead of taking 2 balloons, we are taking a small NC balloon size according to the side branch and inflating it into the side branch. Once that is done, we are doing pot again. So the same result is obtained in the end, like this. So provisional stenting
So for
is over.
6 French, I think 6 French catheter, I think this report will be more easier, no?
Or pot side pot. You mean this thing, second thing, pot side pot, no? Hello?
Yeah, both is possible.
Yes, that's what I'm telling. Post annotation report will be more feasible if 6 French is used, no? Like better in
Yeah, all
that
this
case.
can be done through 6 French.
Yes, that's what.
The last one can be done through 6 French, no?
Yeah.
That's what. Okay.
So till here, provisional side branch strategy is over. If you and if you are able to get a good result by the end of it by using only one stent, then that is the end of the procedure. Now, if you cause dissection or if you cause compromise of the side branch, then you might have to use the second stent in the provisional stenting strategy. Now, when to use the second stent? Second stent you have to use when side branch is more than 75% stenosed. There is a dissection in the side branch. There is a decrease in the flow, that is QV less than 3, or that is causing EC changes or ischemia to the patient. And when this happens, you can do a functional testing or even IVUS IVUS or OCT to know the mechanism why it has happened. And based on that, you can decide the further strategy. So once you have compromised, once there is a problem with the side branch, you have to use a second stent, and that second stent can be used with the help of e-stenting, TAP or QLOT. Now, how to decide which one to use? Focus on this figure. This is a proximal main branch. This is a distal main branch. This is a side branch. If your wire, because you're crossing through the struts again, if your wire has passed through the proximal struts and you inflate it, then you're not going to get a coverage of the ostium. As versus here, your wire has passed through the distal strut here. And when you inflate a balloon across this, these struts get lifted here. Here the struts are lifted laterally, sideways into the side branch. Here they are not lifted. The thing is, now if your wire has gone through the distal struts and if you open that strut into the side branch, what advantage it has is you can do it changes your stenting strategy basically. Now, if you want to put a second stent, you can just deploy it at the ostium of the side branch without causing a protrusion into the main branch. The fundamental thing of bifurcation strategy, you should not compromise the main branch flow. By doing anything to the side branch, if you are compromising the main branch, then that adversely affects your long-term outcome. So your strategy should be to minimize the manipulation. Once you have stented the main branch, your strategy should be to minimize the manipulation with the main branch. So optimally, you should place a stent so that it is at the ostium of the side branch. When the wire has crossed distally, it will, even if you put a stent like this, the green thing which I have drawn is a stent, second stent. If you place it like that, then that will ensure the adequate coverage of all the vessel wall there. As versus here, if you cross proximally, because that thing is not getting plastered laterally, when you put a second stent here, there will be some uncovered part here. This uncovered part will eventually cause restenosis, and the patient will present with side branch restenosis. So that is the thing with proximal crossing versus distal crossing. So based on your wire entry into the side branch, so one of the very important steps is this wire crossing. The wire should be crossed through the distal studs and not through the proximal studs. So if the wire entry is to the distal studs, you can do a T-stenting. This is a T-stenting. You're just opposing the another stent at the ostium of the main vessel, the side branch. Now, if you passed a wire through the proximal vessel as shown here, you will have a gap here. So you have to fill that gap. To fill that gap, you have to protrude this stent into this main branch. So TAP is T-stenting with proximal protrusion. So you have to take back the stent inside the vessel and then so that you cover this gap. So one step, T-stenting is just at the ostium. TAP is just 1 to 2 millimeters inside the main vessel. Culotte is too much inside the vessel. Your stent will start from here till here. So by doing a culotte, you will have long length of double metallic layer in the proximal main branch.
Okay, sir. This one, if we wire through the proximal part, what will happen to this particular area? This gap is there, no?
This gap?
Yeah.
No, you see some studs are deformed here inside. The one below my marker, you see that. That was not there above here. The once you have passed a wire through the proximal and infiltrated, the studs will go inside.
Okay. Okay, this deformity cannot be made.
Yeah, this deformity then you can't correct. And to correct this, you have to put the stent inside and then do FK final casing inflation so that you plaster all this deformity to the walls. So doing that, you are manipulating the main vessel stent. So if you have crossed distally, then you are very safe. You can just do a spot stenting at the ostium of the side branch. So your main vessel is not at all affected if you are doing a T-stenting.
So that whatever the defect you are showing, whatever the strength changes you are showing in the third figure is the one which can be achieved with the distal crossing.
Yeah, if you your aim is to cross distally.
Then we'll get this figure number 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Lokesh, one more thing, how to choose among tap and collar technique, like which is better, like when to decide which one?
We'll come to that.
Lokesh.
Actually, for non-LM lesions.
Lokesh, 1 second. Just one this comment. Actually, in the one of the bifurcation videos by Annapurna Kini, what she told was like this concept of like proximal and distal crossing. It's like theoretically it's correct, but unless until like you are using OCT, you are never going to be sure that you have crossed distally or proximally.
Yeah, correct.
That is one part she told, and like even in their institute, OCT they use at last after achieving everything. Like the decision of the bifurc, like they don't confirm with OCT every time that whether they have crossed proximally or whether they have crossed distally. So according to her, I don't know, but she told that particular crossing the side branch, it is like a good concept theoretically, but practically you are not able to achieve every time, and it is not feasible to do OCT simply to know whether you have crossed through distal strut or through the proximal strut. That's what she told. I don't know
Correct. Correct only. I'll come to that also. For non-LMC lesions, if you do a T-stenting, if you do tap, if you do culotte, or if you do crush, whatever you do for non-LMC bifurcation, It doesn't matter, all are equal. So it is not, this is just a theoretical discussion where what is ideal. Doing this crossing through distal struts and doing a T-stenting is ideal. But you can do T-stenting only when the angle is more than 70.
Varshit, that concept has come basically based on what Lokesh is telling. This distal and proximal crossing.
Correct.
They have
Correct.
found
No.
they have found that ostium was missed when it was actually a proximal causing.
Correct.
So
this
now
area was getting missed,
Yeah,
and those
so-
patients were coming with restenosis. So
Yeah.
this came.
currently there's a
So
very large
this is actually benchmark testing, which is
correct.
shown here.
Yeah. So currently there's a very large trial underway comparing a normal way versus a OCT guided optimization of bifurcation lesions, which is called October trial. Actually, it is a very large trial, almost like an ischemia trial. Landmark trial it is. So in that they are having a specified sub-analysis of this proximal versus distal crossing. Hopefully after that you will know. But till then there is no randomized trial which has looked at whether proximal or distal crossing will have any difference with outcomes with bifurcation. October trial will tell you.
No, correct. And the thing is, what her opinion was, the amount of time and contrast you will end up using OCT to check distal crossing or proximal crossing is not practical. That was a personal.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Correct, because and one more logical point is for non-LMC lesion, whatever strategy you use, T-stenting, tap, Q-load or crush, the results are same according to the trials whichever happened till now. Only the DK crush, which is preferred over other techniques in LMC. For non-LMC bifurcation, all are equal.
Okay.
So it doesn't, in that case, it doesn't matter whether you cross distally or proximally.
Correct.
You just have to cross into the side branch. So that was based on where you cross. So there are two methods: where you cross the wire, or what is your bifurcation angle. Because you are not going to see every time where you are crossing, the second thing which you can do is bifurcation angle. So if your angle is almost a T 90 degrees or more than 70 degrees, you can do a T stenting. Because this gap will decrease automatically once this angle increases. So this ostium will automatically become like this. So when the angle is acute, less than 70 degree, then to avoid this gap, you have to protrude slightly the stent into the main branch by doing a tap, Q-load or a crush. So to summarize whatever we have said till now, we have deployed a stent in the main branch according to distal vessel diameter, leaving a malopposed area in the proximal main branch. Then we oppose that area by doing a pot in the proximal vessel. Now, based on whether you cross it through a distal strut, you will only know whether you crossed through distal strut by doing OCT. If you are not doing this, then you have to see what is your angle. If your angle is T-shaped, then you can do T-stenting there. If your angle is Y-shaped.
Lokesh, your voice is fading in and out. Actually, try not moving the mic or keeping it in a single place.
Okay.
Or you are covering the mic. One of it is happening.
Maybe I was covering the mic. Now it is okay.
Yeah, now it's good. Yeah. Sorry.
So if the angle is Y-shaped, then or you have to cross to the proximal struts, you have to do Q-load or tap. And one thing is acute, more acute the angle, the vessel which it makes with the side branch, the longer will be the metallic neocarina which will be formed. This is actually logical. You can think and see. Now, as I mentioned before, how to if suppose while doing a intervention, your side branch gets compromised. Suppose you have green is the main branch wire, blue is the side branch wire. Over the main branch green wire, you have deployed a stent. By deploying a stent, because suppose you have oversized the stent, and by doing that, you have shifted the carina into the side branch and you have compromised the flow into the side branch. So how to deal with that is you can always pass a small 1.25 balloon over the blue wire, which will go besides the stent again, and you can inflate it slightly so that it opens the way to the side branch again. Then you can you can again rewire the green wire which was in the main vessel. They have crossed it through the struts into the side branch now. Once you have done that, you can again do pot and FKI and optimize the stent. So even if you compromise the side branch, because you are having a jailed wire across, you can always bail it out. So coming to tap, T-stenting or tap, the disadvantage of tap is it will create a metallic neocarina after KBI for a variable length. And once you have done hello.
We are able to hear.
Okay. Once you completed the tap stenting, tap procedure, that is your main branch, main stent is there. Your second stent is into the side branch. And after doing the KBI, if you have centralized the carina also. While doing a repot to make the proximal main branch circular again, you should be very careful because this carina can be very long. If you shift the carina into the side branch, then again side branch will get compromised. Then you will end up messing the procedure very badly if you shift the metallic carina into the side branch. So you should be careful while doing a repot in the end, because if you shift the metallic neocarina into the side branch, then your the side branch will get compromised now because of the metallic carina, which will be difficult to deal with.
So in this one, after final kissing inflation, we again have to do repot, no?
It is, hello? Yeah, you have to do.
Okay.
Because after you do kissing balloon inflation, the shape of the vessel will be like this. What you want is a circle.
Okay.
Because of the two balloons, it will be like this. You don't want
Correct,
that.
correct. Mm-hmm.
Because in the above areas, it will be.
Lokesh, with the repot, why will the carina get shifted? Because the pot is done only from the carina to the proximal part of the studs, no? Like,
Lokesh, your voice is not coming.
Yeah, it will come with. So this is a bifurcation. You have created a neocarina. What happens is with T-stenting, tap is because you are protruding the stent inside, the length of the carina will increase. It will go more inside the vessel. So for some length, it will be like a double barrel there. One barrel here, one barrel here. So when you do repot again, and if you again place a balloon
no,
till
repot
here,
is considering from the whatever previous carina or newly created carina, like how
new carina.
new carina. Okay.
So you can do a boost and see where is your neocarina before doing inflation. That is the thing. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go on.
Yeah. So while doing a pot, usually you see where your balloon marker is by doing angio. So here you have to do boost and see where is your the distal marker with respect to your carina and adjust accordingly. So coming to internal or reverse crush, it is preferred when the side branch is smaller than the distal main vessel. And actually, T and tap is done when T is done when the angle is more than 70. The other things are done when angle is less than 70. And out of internal reverse or internal crush versus Q-load, how do you choose between them is depending on the side branch size. Side branch size. If the side branch size is smaller than the distal main vessel, then you choose internal crush. If both the vessels are equal, then you go for Q-load.
Hey, Lokesh, side branch length will always be smaller, no, than the distal main branch.
Not length, I'm talking diameter.
Sorry, diameter. Sorry, diameter only. It will be smaller only, no? The
Not
distance.
necessary. Suppose
No,
I am doing LMC to LC extending, then my LED becomes the side branch, which won't be small.
okay. But no, what I'm telling is the distal main branch, like left main, suppose LCX is bigger and LED is smaller here, suppose, but still the individual LCX and individual LED will be smaller than the distal main left main, no?
I'm not talking distal main, I'm talking bifurcation as proximal main, this is distal main, this is side branch, three things. So I'm comparing these two.
Okay.
If these two are equal, then you do equal, you do Q load. If side branch is smaller than the distal main, you do internal crush. That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
So I'm not going to details of all the steps again because it is just extension of doing a tap. Here again, you extend your stent slightly inside the main vessel and crush it to the wall of the main vessel. So in the end, what you have is a stent which you had protruded into the main branch, and now you have crushed it entirely into the one wall of the main vessel. So on this side, you will have 3 layers of stent. As versus Q load, you will have full circumference 2 layers. So disadvantage of reverse crush is you will have triple layer of metal on the wall of the vessel, on one wall of the vessel, like it is seen here. This is a main branch stent. You have put one stent in the side branch which you had protruded, and this protruded part you have crushed. So that crushed thing is lying here extra. So that is 3 layers. The target is to reduce that those layers, even if we are doing an internal crush.
So whenever if the internal crush, when you are doing the final kissing balloon technique, that both the side branch balloon and the main branch balloon will be in only main branch stent, only single layer of that stent. Is it like, or is that balloon?
Now, apart from this part, everywhere there is a single layer of stent. Only in this part of the wall, there are three layers. So remaining things you do same only.
Is not coming inside the side branch stent. Completely crushed. During final KBI,
yeah,
side branch balloon will not will take only part of the side branch stent, not the whole length of the stent. That's what.
I'm not understanding. Sorry.
The side branch during final kissing balloon technique, the side branch balloon is there. So the side branch balloon will pass through only part of the side branch stent, not whole length of the side branch stent.
You have crushed already this part, so this part is gone. Whatever is remaining, now you have to dilate that. So Q load, as I said, the side branch usually when it is equal to distal main branch, you prefer Q load. Disadvantage again here is you will have 2 layers of stent in the proximal main vessel. So for all two stent strategies, FKBI is must. As I mentioned previously, for single stent strategy, that is provisional side branch stenting strategy, kissing balloon inflation was optional. If you have achieved a very good result with pot itself, you need not do a kissing balloon inflation in provisional strategy. But when you're using 2 stents, FKBI is must. So for non-LM bifurcations, all these strategies which I mentioned above are equal according to the studies whatever are done till now. For LM bifurcation, according to DK Crush 5 study, DK Crush has been proven superior to other studies, other methods. So procedure wise, for even for LM bifurcation, everything is same. Whatever I discussed, see, this is the same flow diagram which I mentioned till now. If all the steps are same, then when do you choose elective two-stent strategy? When your side branch is large and it has significant osteoproximal disease, the side branch vessel diameter more than 2.5 mm, the disease is more than 50%, and the length of the lesion is more than 5 millimeters, then you can straight away go ahead with two-stent strategy. You can note that in all the strategies, there is a thing written below here as well as here that IVUS and OCT imaging is strongly recommended while doing LMCA stenting. And they have clearly written at one or two places that IVUS or OCT is not mandatory, even if it is strongly recommended. So coming to DK crush, this is slightly tedious steps. Here, DK crush is the preferred choice for doing LMC bifurcation. Here, the side branch is stented first. So you have wired a main vessel, you have wired a side branch. Over the side branch wire, you have put one stent which is sized according to the side branch diameter. A part of the stent is protruding into the main vessel. Now, once you have deployed the stent, you deploy the stent with a balloon, deflated balloon by the side of the stent. As soon as you have deployed the stent here, you remove the stent balloon and the wire both. So now only bare stent is there, and you do pot here. So what pot does is it will crush the extra part of the stent and it will flush it with the wall of the vessel. So what you get is a crushed margin of the stent, which is in line with the wall of the vessel. At this point, you again take your wire again through the vessel into the side branch through that stent. You do kissing balloon inflation. So till now, you have stented the side branch, you have done pot. You have crushed the stent in the side branch and then did kissing balloon inflation. This is done without putting a stent in the main branch. So all this is done to the side branch first. Then after you have done with the side branch, you again remove the wire from the side branch. Then over the main branch vessel, you put a stent which is sized according to the distal vessel diameter. By doing that, you are again creating a malposition in the huge area. To correct that, you are doing a pot second time. So once you did pot above to crush that stent, now you are doing the pot second time with the same balloon which you used here and optimizing the main branch vessel. So you had removed the wire in the side branch before. Now again you will put the side branch wire through the main vessel stent, through the struts into the side branch further. So now you have one main branch vessel wire, one through the struts into the side branch. And then again you do kissing balloon inflation. After that you do again repot, and this is the final result. So DK crush involves removal of the wire 2 times and reinserting the wire 2 times. So there are many tools. There are 2 removal of wires. There are 2 rewirings. There are 3 pots, 1, 2, 3 pots and 2 KBS for kissing balloon inflations. So it involves multiple steps. But to optimize the LMC lesion, LMC bifurcation, this is the best strategy.
Crush is only once.
Yeah, that side branch crush is only once. Side branch stent.
Okay.
It is not actually crush, it is just flushing into with the vessel wall. It is getting minimally crushed there.
Okay.
Another point to note, Lokesh, is that this is the only technique where the main branch wire remains in the main branch
Yeah.
among all the bifurcation. None of the bifurcation, this one, right?
Yeah,
from the
this does not
beginning-
involve recrossing the wire from main branch into side branch,
Yeah,
from side
this-
branch into main branch.
Yeah, this is all. This is the one that, I mean, that they say, like, could be like, responsible for its beneficial outcomes, because you're just leaving the main branch in, and but then it's not. It's just a theory, that's all. But then this is only a bifurcation strategy where the main branch is not touched.
Other methods which I am not going to go in detail, which is V-stenting or SKS. What V-stenting means is you are putting one stent from here to here and another stent from here to here, and they are meeting at the carina. So that is V-stenting. If you further pull the stents up and create a double barrel in the proximal part, then it becomes a simultaneous kissing stents. These techniques are usually not used nowadays, and they are reserved for emergency LMCA bailout. Example, if you create a iatrogenic dissection of LMCA while doing a bifurcation stenting, and if you have both the wires, one in LED and one in L6, you can immediately put two stents and do inflate them simultaneously. So that way you will bail out the patient very rapidly. So it is, the SKS is the only indication remaining now is in emergency LMCA bailout. The disadvantage of SKS is because you are creating a double barrel at the edges of the barrel. There will be some area of malapposition. So that might increase the risk of stent thrombosis. Why or skirt technique? Skirt is basically you put stent from here to here, and then you inflate it by putting a kissing balloon. So the stent opens up like this. This is the main vessel, and this is a bifurcation. So it opens up like a skirt. So it is called skirt. One interesting method is flower petal stenting. In flower petal stenting, it is basically done for Medina 001, where only side branch ostium is involved. It is basically a premature form of Szabo, you can call flower petal stenting, where you suppose there was a lesion here. You have wired both the vessels. You have put a stent into the side branch. But what you have to do is you have to protrude one strut inside the main vessel across the carina. So you have protruded one strut inside the main vessel, and the initial method which was described was with the help of IVUS. So you bring IVUS here, and with IVUS guidance you wire this strut, the one strut which you had protruded. Through that strut you pass a wire. So that wire will go through this. Through that strut, you put one balloon and inflate it. By doing that, you will create a petal through that stent. So it will protrude into the main branch now like this from the stent. Once you created a petal, now you remove this blue wire out, rewire it from the side of this petal, and inflate the balloon there at low atmosphere, and plaster this petal to the side of the wall. So by doing this, you have basically secured the carina.
No, that how to get this out?
This was done by IVUS. Szabo is very easy technique which can be done outside.
I think Kashyapa sir was doing that.
Yeah, he has done it in
Was
front
the
of
one, no? He was the one. This is Agbo flower petal.
This is not Zabo.
Well, that's what.
This is this you can call premature form of Zabo because Zabo is also exactly same. But this part of wiring which you do in Zabo, you do it outside on the table.
Okay.
I'll show that.
Advantage madam.
This is Zabo. So the stent usually comes with a balloon shaft, a balloon. Over that stent will be pre-mounted in a factory. If you have noted, when sister gives you a stent, over that stent one plastic covering will be there. This plastic covering. So she will remove the plastic cover, throw it up, and then give you the bare stent usually. What you have to do in Zabo is you have to retract the plastic cover slightly to expose two struts from the proximal end and ask the sister to inflate it at a very low pressure so that you just inflate this part of the balloon and you have to squeeze this entire part with your fingers inside the plastic covering. By doing that, you will inflate only this part of the stent. So once you do that, again you deflate the balloon. Now your struts have come up. That struts, you pass a distal end of the wire, which is very pointy. So that distal end of the wire, you pass it through the distal struts, and then now you have one stent over two wires, like shown here. The one wire is through and through the stent, and the other wire is through only one strut here. Some voice disturbance is coming. Somebody's mic is on.
All this you will do outside and then take both the two wires and stent togetherly inside.
No, only this wiring part is done outside. The steps are like, suppose you are doing a bifurcation, both the wires are inside already in the patient. Both the wires, you have wired both the coronaries already, and the proximal ends of the wires now, which are outside with you, you are doing that with that proximal end. The proximal end, which is very sharp and pointy.
Okay.
That sharp and pointy end, you are passing through it. If you are not seeing it, it is difficult to understand. This is visible?
Yeah.
So coming to role of imaging, IVUS or OCT, while doing any intervention basically. So even if you get a question on IVUS, you can write most of these things. So the role of IVUS or OCT in bifurcation LMC lesion, diagnostic utility, you can see abnormal vessel morphologies. You can diagnose dissection, intrastent dissection, intramural hematoma, extramural hematoma, aneurysm, pseudoaneurysms, or thrombus inside the coronary. You can do a serial evaluation also. Actually, there is a recommendation by EBC. It is class 2 BC. After 3 to 12 months of any LMC intervention, you should do a coronary angiogram. But that is class 2B, even if patient doesn't have symptoms, that is just for follow-up. So that comes in again, and that time you can do IVUS again. So main part is what is utility in intervention. So when there is ambiguity by angiogram, if suppose by doing angiogram, if you are feeling the LMCA disease is borderline or you're not sure whether to leave it or not, then you can always do an imaging and decide. So by doing imaging, almost half of the patient with significant LMCA disease, which you felt on angiogram that they were significant, which will be actually insignificant by after doing IVUS. Coming to intermediate lesions, there are for LMs, you can plan intervention or defer intervention based on some cutoffs. So ischemic cutoffs, there are 3 ischemic cutoffs given by 3 different studies. One is Shah et al., which involved non-Asian population. In them, the ischemic cutoff, that is whether to do intervention, was 6 millimeter square LMC area. The Kang and Park, the studies both involved Asian population, which are smaller than the Western population. In them, the cutoff was found to be 4.8 and 4.5. So they have clearly written that for non-Asian population, 6 millimeters should be cut off. For Asian, 4.5 or 4.8 you can use. And for non-LMCA, 3 to 4 mm is the cutoff. This is so because the vessel sizes vary dramatically from person to person. So there can't be a single cutoff for non-LMC lesion. And after doing LMC LED stenting, suppose you have planned provisional stenting only and you have done stent from LMC to LED, and you do IVUS and you find L6 area of only 3.7 millimeters square, then less than that is an indication to intervene into the side branch. So another thing which you can do is do plaque morphology assessment. Basically, this is if you find that your plaque is very rich in lipids, then by rupturing the plaque by doing pre-dilatation, there is a risk of causing no flow, slow flow or no reflow phenomenon. So that you can predict by doing IVUS. Another advantage, the major advantage is device size and length assessment. This is very important in doing a bifurcation stenting, because you have to size your balloons and stents according to the distal main vessel. This can be very useful for deciding everything. All the steps can be guided by IVUS. Pre-dilatation balloon size, stent size and length can be decided by IVUS. Post-dilatation balloon size can be decided, and landing zones for the stents can be decided. So after you have finished the stenting, you can even assess complications, whether there is any incomplete stent expansion, incomplete stent apposition anywhere. If on angiography, if you find haziness, you can find out the cause for haziness. Even when we do in cath lab, say even in single stent stenting, many times we find haziness at the proximal or distal end of the stents, and we start the patient on the grommet and leave it. But you can do IVUS and look for cause of it and correct the cause of it, so that you avoid any short-term or long-term complications of it. And for optimizing procedure, the MSA is minimal stent area. After you have stented the vessel, the area achieved should, what is called optimal area, is given by Kang's formula for LMC bifurcation. The 5, 6, 7, 8 rule. 5 is for LCX, 6 is for LED, 7 is for the zone of confluence, and 8 is for the left main. And for non-LMC lesions, if you are using a drug-eluting stent, then the optimal stent area which you should achieve is 5.5 to 5.7 millimeters square. And if you are using BMS, then it should be 6.5 millimeters square. And also, if you are doing if suppose patient presents again, then you can assess the complications on follow-up, like ISR or late acquired stent malapposition or stent fracture. So this page, you can write an answer on, expand it and write an answer on IVUS also. IVUS in anything, it will apply to everything. So coming to LMCA stenting proper, why LMC is different from others is because the ostium is not straight. It is not flush with the aortic wall. It will be oval always, and it will be angulated. So if you put a stent, part of it will be protruded out and part will be inside the stent only. So there is a chance that you will miss a part of the ostium sometimes. The course of the LMCA is usually curved. It won't be straight always. The LMCA supplies 75% of the myocardium, and where RC is dominant. When LCX is dominant, left side is dominant, then it supplies even more, around 90 to 95% of the myocardium. So average diameter, the diameters of LMCA can be 3.5 to 6.5 millimeters. Mean is 5 millimeters. As I showed you above, the balloons, the stents which we have are till 4.5 by majority of the manufacturers. And they can be expanded maximum till 5.5 to 6. And we are having mean of 5 millimeter of LMCA. So that should be good enough. But if we have more than 6, then that can be a problem. We have to customize the stent and get it, maybe. The length of the LMCA is usually 10 plus minus 5 millimeters. The trifurcation of LMCA with ramus additional is seen in 25% of the patients. Bifurcation angle usually is 70 to 80 degrees. So if you do the usual prevalence of LMCA disease in all the angiograms which are done everywhere is estimated to be 4%. And out of those 4%, only 5 to 10% are isolated LMCA diseases. So conventionally, LMCA disease can be divided into ostial, midshaft, or bifurcation. Most part of the bifurcation we have already discussed how to do it and when to do it. Now, when to treat LMCA lesion for the severity cutoff is 50% for LMCA with symptoms or documented ischemia. The LMCA is difficult to assess sometimes by angiography because of lack of appropriate view. Sometimes just because we see in some view it is not significant, so we have a tendency to leave it, but we should profile it in all the views to pick any significant lesion. The cutoffs, as I mentioned above, also the MLA, these cutoffs are ischemic cutoffs, and these are after stenting optimization cutoffs. So for ischemia, the Asian population 4.8 and 4.5 for LMCA, and after doing a stenting for different regions of the bifurcation, these are the cutoffs. For LMCA, it is 8. For region of confluence, it is 7. For LED, it is 6. And for L6, it should be minimum 5 millimeters. This is also called Kang's criteria because it was studied in Kang et al. Study.
LMCA views, best views, which one? Angiographic views? That is, there was some confusion in the class.
Eleocranial, right? Eleocranial or epicranial?
Only cranial.
Eleocranial, staff, Areo.
Areo? Caudal.
Yeah, for shaft, you do areocaudal or eleocaudal.
Yeah.
For LMC bifurcation, basically you do eleocaudal or areocaudal. For ostium of LMC, you do eleocranial. For ostium of RCA, you do eleocaudal or eleo. If you're doing only L6 ostial stenting, then you do eleocaudal. Coming to recommendations, the left main disease with low syntax score, the PCI and CABG and PCI both get class 1 recommendations. When it is intermediate syntax score 23 to 32, CABG is class 1 and PCI becomes class 2A. When the LMC disease is associated with a high syntax score of more than 33, then CABG is class 1 and PCI becomes class 3. For use of IUS, as I mentioned, it is class 2A recommendation according to ESC 2018 revascularization guidelines for while doing unprotected left main lesions. Coming to evidence for doing PCI and LMCS disease, there are basically 6 major trials which were done. Out of all, for primary endpoints, were not significant. There was no significant difference between PC and CABG in all the trials. But only 2 trials, Pre-Combat and Excel, achieved non-inferiority. So primary endpoints of different things, death, MI, stroke, and repeat revascularization for majority of them were not significant in any of the trials. What differed was the revascularization rate. So in all the trials, revascularization was significant, was more in PCI as compared to CABG. So with respect to need for revascularization, CABG fared superior to PCI always. But the clinical significance was achieved only in Excel, Nobel, pre-combat, and syntax trial out of the 4. So Nobel proved that the PCI is inferior to CABG for doing LMCS stenting. Pre-combat and Excel proved non-inferiority for doing PCI and LMC or LMCS stenting.
This inferiority for pre-combat is mortality or revascularization?
Only revascularization.
Not for mortality.
No.
Okay. And Excel later on the controversy tells mortality benefit is also there with CABG.
I don't know that. Is it?
Huh?
Dimpu will know.
Yes, Dimpu.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
Excel
See,
controversy was there, no? Huh.
Excel basically tells that at 5 years, no, so there is increased all-cause death with what is this? With all-cause mortality was higher in Excel with PCI than with CABG, but the primary outcome was actually a composite of a lot of things, which was which failed to actually reach significance. So it was non-inferior basically. No, actually.
In the primary endpoint, they took post-procedural MI according to SCAI definition, and that
Yeah.
was
So
creating
no, the reason why it is different altogether. But what was found was this actually. So, but then they one thing I wanted to point out, Lokesh, this Excel, no, there has been some post hoc analysis. 2 post hoc analysis have been done. One is with left main PCI, there were more revascularizations, no. So they have recategorized the left main lesions into ostial, shaft, and distal. So they found that when they have done distal bifurcation only, the revascularization were higher. The ostial and shaft fared as non-significant with respect to revascularization, repeat revascularization in the Excel post hoc analysis. And the second thing was that even this DK Crush 5 trial was actually called in for question with this Excel post hoc analysis, because the DK Crush 5 trial had included people with a super selective strategy, in the sense that all the operators should have had done at least 10 procedures of DK Crush before they have even been included. So which is not a real world scenario. So they went ahead and saw the real world scenario and compared 1-stent strategy versus a 2-stent planned strategy in Excel, and they found that actually 2-stent and 1-stent strategy did not differ again. So even that recommendation of ESC 2B for left main bifurcation is being called into question actually now, because both it's not standing its ground when the 2-stent strategy is being compared to 1-stent strategy. But having said that, in Excel it was not only DK Crush strategy, it was mostly TAP and culotte, and the others were Crush, Mini Crush, DK Crush, lots of V stenting, lots were used. But still the 2-stent strategy on the whole did not hold its ground when it was compared with 1-stent strategy, but however it was not powered for it. These are all sub-analysis actually.
No, this Excel, this BBC controversy in our group also it was discussed, no? That MI, because they included the post-procedure MI, that shifted the non-inferior, that resulted in overall non-inferiority.
Correct.
But the mortality was high.
They have concealed the results. Yeah, that is why it is.
And they have also concealed. Yes, they have concealed also. Correct.
Yeah. So EACTS has actually withdrawn its recommendation following that BBC controversy.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, Lokesh, sorry.
Coming to ostial LMC stenting, when you have isolated LMC ostium, the recommendation is you do IVAS to both LAD and L6. If you still have doubt, you can do FFR as well to assess the severity. Once you have confirmed that it is severe stenosis, then you can do a focal stenting to the ostium and flare it later. That is simple thing. Then coming to Medina 110, it is just like provisional stenting till here. After provisional stenting, you have to assess what is the result in your L6 thing, LCX. That you can do with IVUS and FFR. If your FFR is not more than 0.8, then you have to go ahead with the second stent strategy. And the second stent strategy, as I discussed, can be reverse crush, this is not DK crush, reverse crush, culot, or T or tap. Then again, if you have Medina 101, it will be same as what it is given here. If it is Medina 010 or 001, that is ostial LAD or ostial LCX, then you can do provisional stenting, Szabo technique, pull back or balloon stopper technique, which is invented by Annapurna Kini and Samim Sharma. Or you can do what we do, that is precise ostial stenting. But there was a study done for precise ostial stenting for LAD. I don't remember the author's name, but in that study, 54% of the times the ostium was missed, and that had led to restenosis of the LAD ostium. So the recommended choice, even if you have proximal LAD or proximal LCX, is provisional stenting. You can use Szabo or do a pullback with a balloon stopper technique. What you do in pullback and balloon stopper is you will wire both the branches. You will put a balloon across a main vessel and inflate it here after you have positioned the stent. Once you have positioned the stent here, because you have inflated the balloon in the main vessel, that will occlude the main vessel completely. So after you have positioned the stent here, undeployed stent this is, then you start pulling the stent back. Because your balloon is inflated here, that will be, you will be able to pull it till, just till the ostium of the side branch. Once you get a tug, you deflate this balloon and inflate this balloon and deploy the stent in the side branch. That is the pullback and balloon stopper technique.
In that case, that stent won't get dislodged, like if you are pulling against some resistance.
Not very forcefully. You just have to manage so that it comes to the ostium. It is just for precise ostial stenting. Don't force. It will come back.
And one more thing, in ostial flaring, we use non-compliant balloon only, no?
Semi-compliant.
Non-compliant. In non-compliant, generally they won't expand more than their caliber. Then why? How will the ostium get?
He told semi-compliant.
It will semi-compliant.
Semi-compliant. Okay.
Because compliant will only expand less than 10%. The expansion is only less than 10% for non-compliant balloon.
Oh, right.
So a 4 millimeter balloon can maximally increase to 4.4 millimeters, not beyond that.
This pullback and stopper, this stent, they pull after inflating or before inflating?
Now you wire both the things. Then you, in the main vessel, you put one balloon.
Okay.
And in the side branch where you want to put a stent, you put the stent but don't inflate it. Keep it there.
Okay.
Now you inflate the balloon in the main branch across the side branch. You're occluding the side branch for temporarily. And then once that is at low pressure, you don't want to injure the main branch.
Correct.
It is just for precisely positioning the side branch stent. Now you start slowly pulling the stent back until you get some resistance. At that time, you stop and inflate the balloon.
Okay.
If you have Medina, if you have Medina 011, that is only the distal main vessel, and the side branch is involved. Then again, the method of choice is provisional, followed by 2 stents. In 2 stents, again same thing: the T tap, culot, and DK crush. Or you can do V stenting. V stenting is rarely done. Follow-up of LMCA. The late, that is 3 to 12 month control coronary angiogram may be considered. That is given class 2B recommendation by EBC with a level of evidence C. And non-invasive follow-up may be considered after 2 years after the LMCA PCI. That is also class 2B. So coming to almost the end of the talk, this is based on Medina classification and what all strategies you can use. So it is 111, that is lesion involving all the 3 parts. Then still the preferred strategy is provisional, or two-stage strategy using a DK crush. If it is LMC, DK crush is preferred. If it is non-LMC, all are equal. You can use whichever you want. Then if it is 110, again provisional is the preferred choice. The 3 in purple here are true bifurcation lesions: 111, 111, 101, and 011, where the strategies remain same. Because in 110, your side branch is not affected, it doesn't come under true bifurcation. And if even the angle is 90 degrees, you might not even wire the side branch and do just a provisional stenting. For 100, that is lesion only in the proximal part of the bifurcation, again the preferred choice is provisional. You can do a skirt or do a reverse Szabo. You can go and read reverse Szabo. It is reverse of putting here it is put through the proximal end of the wire is passed through the proximal end of the studs. In reverse Szabo, it is put through the distal end. In 001, in 010 or 001, that is ostial main branch or ostial side branch stenosis, the options which you have are provisional, precise ostial stenting, which we keep doing, which as I mentioned, according to one study, 54% of the time they had shown that they were missing ostium. Then you can do Szabo, and you can do balloon pull back and stopper technique. For both the oscillations, you can do same techniques. And B and SKS basically comes only as a bailout when you have wire across both into LED and L6 to bail out an emergency in LMC stenting.
Szabo is the only extension of precise.
Yeah, it is just to place the stent precisely at the ostium. By doing a Szabo, you won't miss the ostium. You will be actually your one stud. This one stud will be before the ostium only. And people have devised many dedicated bifurcation stents which you can go through. There are many. Praxis Petal, then Triton, then Stentis, and Devax. And
Lokesh.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Regarding this one in bifurcation, like they ask once Kapil sir had asked Finnett's law and this one Murray's law.
Yeah, that I have not put.
That they ask sometimes.
Lokesh, just add it in one paper in the beginning itself. Like just those two, Finnett's law and Murray's law. I think it will just complete the whole thing. That's all.
And just these views of LMCA also just
What?
Views of LMCA,
Okay,
angiographic views.
I have one slide of that. Okay, put. Anything else?
Extensively covered. Thank you.
Expensive, man. Nice.
Extensive. Lokesh, that modified Medina basically talks about trifurcation, because we keep seeing trifurcation also of late. So what it says is there is a fourth column in that, basically not this thing. There is a modified classification for trifurcation. So let's say I'm talking about a left main bifurcation. Trifurcation. So left main will be 1 and LED will be 2. I mean, in the sense, the second position, L6 will be 3rd and Ramus will be 4th. So that's how it is.
Oh, that has also come, huh?
Yeah. So when you're using it for trifurcation, when you talk about Medina, then this will be the way you have to tell it. Actually.
One more thing I want to tell, while you're drawing this diagram, you see in all of this, the Karaina they have not drawn any lesion on the Karaina. All the Karainas are free.
Yeah, it's not included in Medina. Yeah.
Yeah. So even when you draw in the exam, don't draw across the Karaina. You have to draw on the opposite walls.
Because it is
But-
rarely involved.
No, it is just rarely involved. It's not like it should not be drawn, Lokesh.
Yeah, you should. I am just telling.
Yeah.
The
No.
usual propensity is to draw include that, no? That's why it's
Yeah,
telling.
no,
Rarely involved. If we draw there,
No,
the
but-
thing
Draw
that
it here and leave it, which is less common. You can draw. No, nothing wrong. There are diagrams which give.
if we draw that, it may convey wrong message to examiners that we don't know that Karaina is rarely involved.
Yeah.
ಏನಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ.
You won't realize that you have not drawn Karaina. You won't see where you have drawn the lesions.
Okay. And yeah, that modified this thing only. And mini crush technique.
It has drawn Karaina lesions.
Yeah, that's what. See, mini crush technique basically is the protrusion in the crush technique of the side branch is actually decreased to 2 to 3 stunts. 2 to 3 struts actually. That is what is mini crush.
Tap is 2 to 3 struts. 3 or more is mini crush.
Yeah, but
And
it's not as much as in crush.
And it becomes classic crush. If you don't crush it, it becomes keloid. It is just an extension of everything.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
How much you protrude into the main branch depends on that. If you don't, if you protrude by 1 millimeter, it becomes a tap. If you protrude, it becomes mini crush.
Hey, but your voice, something you should do for your next presentation. Please use some other means of talking. It was
My laptop's
waxing and waning, actually.
With this mic.
Sorry?
This is my laptop's mic. I don't know what is wrong with this mic.
No, but is there any other way you can circumvent this? Because last time when you're doing FFR also, we faced the same problem. It's not like we didn't hear, but we had to keep interrupting you for that. That's why I think I speak for everyone when I'm saying this.
Not much interruption. Hardly 2-3 times you people do.
Yeah, but then after a while, we kind of waited for it to come back. It's not
You
like
can use earphones, I think. Earphones.
Yes, it is not clear with that also.
No, I think if you can use some other laptop if you have. Otherwise, I'm not sure how to circumvent that. Phone maybe, because when you are logged in on a normal day, it's much better than actually when you present.
ಇದು ಲೋಕೇಶ್
Yeah.
ಇದು in the provisional stenting method when the side branch stenosis is more than 75% is called ಅಲ್ಲ.
What?
In provisional stenting technique, we need to, if at all the side branch compromise occurs, like the stenosis is like more than 75%.
Yeah.
ಅದು why, 75 where it is given, like 75 as or like usually 70 or 80%, 75%.
You are asking why it is 75?
Why 75?
That I have not decided. Maybe they have seen it in the studies.
Okay. That any criteria like in that way they've given.
Varshit, this is your Finet's and Murray's law.
No, I'm just no, it is given. No, they are asking in Viva also, I think.
They asked. It's a stupid thing. Nobody applies this. I don't know why they.
No, the concept is like sometimes if you have a total occlusion, how you will like size the vessel.
You need to use IVAS.
That is okay.
Murray's law is important in a way that if the side branch is more than 2.3 mm, then then the difference between the distal main branch and the proximal branch will be more than 1 mm. Here we have to do pot synthesis.
No.
Yeah, no. See, but the point is
What you told is not clear. Voice was not clear. What you told?
Currently, pot is see, that was what the initial thought was. But then currently, irrespective of the size, you do pot.
Pot, okay.
there is no technique where you don't do pot, because everything has a kissing balloon stenting. So when you do a kissing balloon, like Lokesh was saying, they say that basically at the junction of those balloons, no, in the center, it becomes flat, and overall the whole contour of the whole thing becomes actually very this thing, like, you know what to say, it becomes oblong. Yeah, to make it round again, you need to do a pot basically. So in previously they used to think it is like that when the Murray's law and this thing was done, like, you know, in those things, if pot is done, it'll have a better outcomes and stuff. But then currently there are enough and more trials which show that, you know, both this side branch entry is better with pot, and also the optimization of the proximal part supposition is better with pot.
So where Finet's law can be utilized is, suppose this is bifurcation, this is LMCA, this is LAD, this is LCA. Size of LAD, what you are getting on angiogram is 3.5, LCX is 2.5, and the LM is actually, none of these vessels are showing any lesion anywhere. They are all clean. But
it could be a diffuse lesion.
You can suspect is you can do Finet's law and calculate the LMCA size. Suppose by doing Finet's law here, you are getting LMC size of 4 millimeters, which should be there for normal. This patient normal. But if you measure it only, then this patient has diffuse LMC lesion, because you don't have anything to compare with the reference. In that case, you can tell that because the distal vessels are larger, from that you are getting an expected size of 4 mm, but you are getting 2 mm. Just a hypothetical scenario. In that case, you can tell that it is significant LMC, and think of doing IVUS, despite having a visibly normally looking LMC.
Okay, I think Gaurav will have yours sometime else.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow already 3 topics are lined up. We will have the colchicine thing later. Thanks, Lokesh. Extensive presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lokesh. Thank
तो
you.
कल क्या करना है भाई वर्षित?
हाँ?
EP वालों क्या करना है कल?
EP वाला, हाँ, ये कल 2 दिन जाते हैं सब लोग, और एक्चुअली जो राउंड ले रहा है वही राउंड लेगा एक जना, और बाकी जो है other person will be in backup. We all will be somewhere in the library. Once Deepak sir comes, we will accompany him in the round.
Okay, fine. कल दीपक
That's
सर
what
आ रहे
I
हैं, you know
feel.
that.
Gautam, Yelsangikar, Ajit, they want to do add something.
Who is coming for rounds tomorrow?
I don't know, man. I think we can discuss in our group. Hello.
Okay, bye bye.
Yeah, Lokesh, good presentation. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Lokesh.
Thank you.